Live from New Delhi, this is South Asia Newsline with Monisha Narang.
Good evening. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Friday, the 24th of August. Pakistani Christian girl jailed for blasphemy, traumatized and frightened, lawyer denied access. Supreme Court dismisses plea against Chidambaram in telecom spectrum scam. And heavy rains kill dozens in Pakistan and India. And now for all the details. Pakistani authorities have denied a lawyer permission to meet the 11-year-old Christian girl arrested last week for alleged desecration of the Quran, the Islamic holy book. An activist who managed to gain access to her said she had been traumatized by the ordeal.
Efforts to provide legal relief to the young girl lodged in a prison in the garrison city of Rawalpindi has been blocked by the administration, community leaders allege. I contacted the Inspector General of Prisons and he told me he will revert to me. He is not receiving my calls now. Legally, they can't stop a lawyer seeing his client in the jail, but the authorities are refusing us a meeting, Tahir Naveed Chowdhury, Rifta Masi's lawyer, said in Islamabad. The girl with Down syndrome was arrested from an impoverished precinct in the capital last Thursday after her neighbor alleged she had burnt pages which had inscriptions from the Quran. A court had remanded Masi to 14 days judicial custody. Xavier Williams, a Christian activist who managed to see the girl held in solitary confinement, said she was too frightened to speak. She was frightened and traumatized. She was assaulted and in very bad shape. She had bruises on her face and on her hands, Williams said in Islamabad. The case has put the spotlight on Pakistan's notorious blasphemy law, which discriminates against the Islamic nation's minuscule religious minorities. Masi faces death penalty if found guilty. Rights activists say the law has been misused to settle personal scores. Convictions are common, although the death sentence has never been carried out. But mobs have killed many people accused of blasphemy. 2 Christian brothers accused of writing a letter against Prophet Muhammad were gunned down outside a court in Faisalabad, some 60 miles from Lahore, in July 2010. Last month, an irate mob stormed into a police station near Bahawalpur and beat a mentally ill person to death after he allegedly burned pages from the Quran. In 2009, 40 houses and a church were set ablaze in the town of Gojra in Punjab province. At least 7 Christians were burned to death following reports of defaming Islam. Masi's arrest triggered an exodus of several hundred Christians from her neighborhood after being ordered to leave. The mutilated and half-burnt body of Samuel Yaqub, an 11-year-old Christian boy, was recovered on Monday from Faisalabad. Police said they were investigating whether the murder had any links to Masi's case.
In a major relief to Indian Finance Minister Palaniappan Chidambaram, the Supreme Court rejected a plea against him. The top court dismissed 2 petitions seeking a probe into his alleged role in the multi-billion-dollar telecom scam.
Upholding a trial court order, the Supreme Court ruled there was no prima facie evidence against Chidambaram of any criminal conspiracy. The judges said the poor management in allocation of 2G spectrum cannot be said to be a product of criminal conspiracy. The petition was filed by Janata Party Chief Subramanian Swamy and an NGO Centre for Public Interest Litigation seeking a probe by the Central Bureau of Investigation or CBI against Chidambaram. Swamy accused Chidambaram of working together with former telecom minister and main accused of 2G scam Andimuthu Raja in fixing the scarce spectrum prices. He termed the verdict as a bad judgment and said the court gave its verdict on issues which he never raised. The former law minister said he will file a review petition.
There is going to be a review asking the Supreme Court to give me a full opportunity to make my case. I assume that they had been convinced, that's why they stopped me in the middle. Now I find that I am being prejudiced by being stopped in the middle. So I want a full opportunity. I will file a review.
Chidambaram's Congress party welcomed the decision and said the legal challenges were a part of opposition's destabilization plan.
This is all politics to destabilize the functioning of Parliament, the functioning of this country, to send a message to the media that the government does not respond, even though the allegations are without any substance. This is the nature of the politics of the BJP.
One of India's biggest graft cases ever, the 2G scam, which cost the nation some $39 billion in revenue to the public exchequer, has already seen the arrest of many top officials, including Raja. Friday's verdict also brought some respite to the ruling alliance, which has been facing the heat of opposition over coal block allocation scam. The main opposition, BJP, has been demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh over his alleged role in the swindle. A report by the state auditor has said 142 coal blocks were given at throwaway prices to various state-owned and private entities from July 2004 to March 2011. For 3 of the 5 years between 2004 and 2009, Prime Minister Singh was holding the portfolio of Coal Ministry.
On to some other developments now. With the end of the month of Ramadan, New Delhi hopes that Dhaka will lift a temporary ban on marine exports to India. Bangladeshi trade analysts have rejected notions that the embargo will affect relations between the neighbours.
With the prices of the popular Hilsa fish skyrocketing in India and being sold at $20 to $30 per kilogram, authorities have requested Bangladesh to lift the ban. Dhaka had restricted exporting of the white fish, a favorite of all Bengalis, to check the spiraling prices during the month of Ramadan. While many raised concern that the embargo might negatively affect the good ties between New Delhi and Dhaka, trade experts in Bangladesh differed. Abdul Matlab Ahmed, president of Bangladesh India Chamber of Commerce and Industry or BICCI, expressed confidence that the positive ties between the neighbours cannot be affected by such a temporary ban.
We have got a lot of things in our agenda for a good relationship. The fact that Hilsa fish has not been allowed to be exported to India does not really hamper our relationship.
Ahmed said the government should involve all stakeholders while taking such decision in future to ward off apprehensions.
We have lost a sizable amount of foreign exchange by this immediate stop. But again, such decisions should be carefully taken, analyzed, and the stakeholders must be told upfront what is coming. So they must be told that there will be a situation where if the prices are too high, that there will be a ban on export of Hilsa.
Bengalis across the world have been passionate about Hilsa, a strongly flavoured silver-coloured fish without which their platter is incomplete. It is an important part of their tradition and identity and has a huge demand in India, particularly in West Bengal. Hilsa, which is Bangladesh's national fish, is caught from all major rivers of the country. Out of the 340,000 tons of catch in 2010-11, 5,376 tons were exported to India alone.
Mohammad Wahid, the president of the Maldives, has proposed that his country and Sri Lanka jointly promote their tourism sector. President Wahid, who is on a 2-day visit to the island nation, held talks with his Sri Lankan counterpart, President Mahinda Rajapaksa, in capital Colombo. The two leaders have agreed to expand bilateral cooperation. They also discussed issues of mutual interest, including defense and security, fisheries, health, and education. At least 25 people have been killed in heavy monsoon rains in Pakistan. The downpour and waterlogging in eastern and northwestern provinces brought back memories of the country's worst ever floods in 2010.
Hundreds of homes were damaged in the landslide and flooding which has hit parts of Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, federally administered tribal areas, and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Scores of livestock have also been washed away.
پړی میوش ټول مړو پویوړو پدې کې شپږ ساري پیدا شي ته کې ولاړ دي دا پردې کور دا پروت دی دلته کې مسافر پراتی دغه دنیا تاوان شوی دی.
Relief operation is on and authorities have sounded a high alert. The Weather Bureau has predicted more rains in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Floods are not new to the Islamic nation. In 2011, it had affected nearly 6 million people. Approximately 1/5 of Pakistan was underwater in July 2010. The worst deluge killed some 1,700 people and left 10 million homeless. In neighbouring India too, torrential rains continue to lash northwestern Rajasthan for the third day. Over 27 people have been reported killed in the desert state. While the summer rains in the northern states have wreaked havoc, southern and western India have deficit monsoon, impacting agriculture and other sectors.
Indian cinema these days is more than just glossy films about beautiful, rich people shot in exotic locales. A new breed of filmmakers are increasingly choosing small towns for their movie backdrops. This gives their films a greater sense of realism for audiences in hinterland, but they're also being well received by urban cinema goers.
Stories of ordinary people from small towns and poor rural areas are back with a bang in popular cinema. Shot in India's poorer rural heartlands, these movies portray the lives, dreams and yearnings of real women and men. For instance, a recently released movie called Ishqzade, meaning Love Rebels, is a love story that takes place in a small town of northern Uttar Pradesh state. It features newcomers Arjun Kapoor and Parineeti Chopra in the lead roles and had the 5th most lucrative box office opening of 2012, after big-budget blockbusters like Agnipath and Houseful 2. It earned around $800,000 on its first day and thereafter performed reasonably well at the box office.
I mean, the star cast wasn't big, but the effect of the choreography and the dialogues, they were very impressive. And as metropolitan citizens, we get to know more about the small town and whatever is happening in other parts of the country, we get to know more about it.
We can't watch movies all the time based on exotic locations and all. So yeah, these kind of, apart from those mainstream movies, I think they make an interesting watch, something different.
One moderate budget crime saga that is generating a great deal of interest is the 2-part series called Gangs of Wasepur, directed by one of India's new breed of film directors, Anurag Kashyap. Many critics are already considering it a cult classic, despite or indeed maybe because of the negative headlines it generated for its use of violence and abusive language. Both parts of the 2-movie series center around power struggles, politics and vengeance between 3 crime families.
Because Indian cinema is changing rapidly. And the way it has changed in the last 2-3 years, there are a whole lot of new filmmakers that are coming in now. And the stories and they have to tell, and the way they are fearless and they don't owe anything to Bollywood.
Critics believe this renaissance of realism to be a coming of age for Bollywood. A new era where human stories about real people, their struggles and triumphs have led to a gritty rediscovery of a less fantastical India.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Pakistani Christian girl jailed for blasphemy. Traumatized and frightened, lawyer denied access. Supreme Court dismisses plea against Chidambaram in telecom spectrum scam. And heavy rains kill dozens in Pakistan and India. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.